My name is George Brady, originally from Brooklyn, New York. Well, let's see.
Okay.
I started going with my mom and dad and my younger brother probably when I was, I'm thinking about 8, more or less. Started going by myself. I had to drag my younger brother along when I was 10. We had a movie theater where I lived in Brooklyn, was real close to the ocean, and we had a movie theater right in our neighborhood. So we could either ride our bicycles to it or we could walk. And it was called the Quentin, Quentin Theater. In fact, the marquee is still there, as a matter of fact. They never did tear the marquee down. It's probably a historical landmark now, I suppose. It
Very
was,
nice.
when I went with my parents, it was a special occasion, because I remember Alibaba and the 40 Thieves, because that was a color movie, and that was a big deal, to see a Technicolor movie. That's the one where the genie's up on the, if you've ever seen it, it's a classic. He's up on this magic, the genie comes out of the bottle, and then they have this magic carpet, and they fly around the world. I mean, as a kid, it was pretty dramatic.
Yeah.
No, we went, myself, my brother, and this whole gang of kids, there was usually 5 or 6 of us, and we would go to see the serials, which would be, for example, The Lone Ranger.
The Lone Ranger.
And it was always a series, so you wanted to see the first episode because next Saturday, it's always when we went, Saturday morning, 10 o'clock. Next Saturday was the next serial, film number 2, the number 3, the number 4. So it was a whole series.
You said you're.
My brother's 18 months younger than me, and then the other kids that lived on our street, there were a couple of 4 or 5 of them.
Okay.
And it was only, I think it cost, I think it was 10 cents to get in. Yeah, it was 10 cents to get in. So the way you got the 10 cents was you did errands around the house. Your mother would give you a penny, your dad would give you a penny for this, a penny for that, get you 10 cents. And then, and the candy wasn't like it is now. I mean, you have to take a loan from the bank to go to the snack bar in the theaters. It wasn't that way back then. It was a lot more reasonable.
Wow.
It was the films, because when you're 10 or 11 years old, not now in this generation, but certainly then, we didn't have television. I mean, some kids on the block had it. We didn't. We had a radio, and so you grew up following radio serials like Boston Blackie and Superman and the Green Hornet and those kinds of things. The Shadow was another one. Well, in the movies, they were black and white, but you had The Lone Ranger. You had another series called Don Winslow and the U.S. Coast Guard. There was Dick Tracy. And because they were serials, you would see 1 or 2 shows. It was always we always went to a double feature with cartoons. And so if you saw The Lone Ranger let's say part 6 today, Saturday, then next Saturday you knew part 7 was coming. And they always, the way the film was cut, they always leave you where the Lone Ranger was in a corner and the Indians were going to pull their arrows back and all that kind of stuff. No, they had during the week there was a regular show. I couldn't give you the name of a title because I didn't go to them. They were probably more adult focused, at least in terms of dialogue and those kinds of things. So for a 10-year-old to go to, like to see a love story, we wouldn't go. My folks didn't go to the movies all that much at all. I mean, when they did go, they'd usually bring us because it was something really special. But during the week, there'd be, let's say the movies ran, I don't know, hour and a half, about maybe 2 hours. Then on Saturday morning at all the theaters, it was always kids' morning. All the kids went. Rarely were there adults in the theater. But Saturday afternoon then, they'd have matinees where if the women went, they were given dishes. And you could collect china. They called it china. It was just dishes. You could collect dishes and teacups and saucers or knives and forks, and then they would have an evening show. But again, that was for adults. I mean, the kid. Well, you didn't go out at night. I mean, 8 o'clock, you're in the house, and that was that, you know. As a kid, you know, you go and you buy a ticket, and you go inside and get some popcorn. And, they served soda, they didn't have vending machines. They had the bottle, and have cans. They had bottled soda, but what they would do is they'd give you a wax paper cup and a little bit of ice, and they take the bottle, let's say a bottle of Coke, and they pour the Coke in the bottle. They kept the bottle, you got the soda. Was when we were 10 or 11, and many times when we go into the Quentin Theater, we never knew if they were going to show cartoons. Because the theater manager, I guess, controlled that. And depending on the length of the films they were going to film or films they were going to show or the serials they were going to show. Because sometimes you didn't see a movie, you saw 2 or 3 serials of different characters back to back. They would show cartoons. And, you know, there'd be, you know, the Roadrunner and Mickey Mouse, and all the standard kid stuff that's still around today. But the exciting part was to be sitting down. We'd always sit up front, like 2 or 3 rows from the front, because you could see the big screen. And to find out that there wasn't just going to be 1 cartoon, there was going to be 3 cartoons. That was great.
Okay.
It was like being in heaven. It was wonderful. I mean, you just got excited about it, you know?
Okay.
Yeah, if they were going to show cartoons or not. They wouldn't advertise it. You knew that you were going to see let's say, a Don Winslow serial. And Don Winslow, it was filmed out in California, goes out in California, in fact, San Diego. And it was the U.S. Coast Guard protecting us from a Japanese invasion. Or going after German spies that were in the harbors that were going to put mines in the water and blow ships up and all that kind of stuff. So you knew you were going to see a particular, they used to call them chapters. You're going to see chapter 4 of Don Winslow in San Diego. They might show, and they didn't tell you this, that they might show chapter 4 and 5. Okay. So the thing about going to the movies, again, and this was in probably all of Brooklyn, but certainly in my neighborhood, you knew for sure you were going to see one serial. That always, and you knew what one that was going to be. Sometimes there was a movie that followed it that you probably stayed for. I couldn't tell you what they were because I honestly I don't remember. But many times there wouldn't be a movie, there'd be some more serials. They never told you that when you walked in. So going to the show on a Saturday morning there was always a surprise factor. It wasn't like today where you're going to go in and, you know, put a bar of gold up to get your popcorn and pay for your popcorn and soft drink. And then you know what the show is going to be, you know how long it's going to be. You know, there's been so many ads for it on TV or, you know, the little film clips. You may not know the ending, but if there's been a book out, you've read the book, like Harry Potter. I mean, we read all the books, and after we read each book, then we went to the movie. So the expectation was how well did the movie do against the book. In the case of Harry Potter, it was great. Some others that we read the book and went to the show, not so good. So it was the surprise factor, absolutely.